Hello, welcome once again. In this video, we shall be looking at the first element of defamatory statement. What I would construe as the first element, which is the meaning of defamatory statement. We have looked at what it means in terms of a definition. We have looked at the components of that statement or that definition. And out of those components, we underscored the fact that the statement must be defamatory. So in today's video, we shall be looking at what we mean by statements, not necessarily defining it now, but looking at what exactly do we mean by a defamatory statement, and breaking it down into its various components. Okay, in a typical way, we'll share our screen and proceed from there. Okay, so defamatory statements. The learning outcomes for today's presentation are twofold. They are twofold. First, we'll know what we actually mean by the statement being defamatory, and then we look at the construction, the forms and the construction of statements, how the courts would construe statements. And in a typical exam situation, therefore, I would expect that in order to construe whether the facts before you are defamatory, in terms of a cause of action as a complete thought, look at the statement itself. Can we say the statement is such that fits the definition of the meaning of defamation that we talked about earlier? So that definition I have here on the screen again, a statement that is calculated to lower a plaintiff in the estimation of right-thinking members of the society, or cause him to be shunned or ridiculed or avoided, or convey an imputation that is disparaging or injurious to the office. That's what we said. Now, in the context of this video, I will emphasize now another aspect of this definition, that it must be a statement. What you are complaining of as a plaintiff must be a statement, not an opinion, not a statement of opinion. And I would emphasize that when we are looking at defenses again. And what we mean by it, if I say, for instance, that Mr. Bolu is the worst orator that you can come across in the university setting, that is a statement of my opinion. Another person might come and say, Mr. Bolu is the best orator he has ever seen in the university setting. That's an expression of an opinion. As that is not a statement. And even in terms of liability, we look at the implication of that during the defenses. That it may be an expression of opinion that may be based on true facts. And if that can be found, then you are not likely to be liable for defamation. But if you were to say that Mr. Bolu failed his final year exam when he was in the university, that's not a statement of opinion. That's an expression or a statement of fact. And if you cannot, prove the truthfulness of that fact, it could come as a defamatory statement. So in looking at this definition in this video, what I will just emphasize now, I've emphasized so many components of it in previous video, is that it must be a statement and not an opinion. Now, when you're talking about statements, in the law of defamation, you can look at a statement that somebody has uttered in their ordinary meaning. We said it must be a statement that disparages the person, okay? In terms of injuring the reputation, it's the thought that protects your reputation. So the statement can be construed in its ordinary and natural meaning. X stole Mr. Y's car. X cheated in the examination. X is a thief. X is promiscuous, is a prostitute. X is corrupt. X robbed the bank. X stole from the treasury. Statements can be looked at in the ordinary meaning of the words. How do ordinary plain people of society construe a particular statement or word that you are complaining of? In their natural meaning, a statement may be defamatory. The examples that are given, if somebody is a thief, he stole another person's car, he robbed the bank, he's corrupt, he forged his signature, in the ordinary meaning of those words, they are disparaging, they are defamatory, they are derogatory. Anybody who hears that somebody is a prostitute will not think kindly. Ordinary members, natural members of society, not those who subscribe to a standard of behavior that is not a reasonable standard of behavior. So when you look at a statement like in its ordinary form, does it have a natural derogatory defamatory meaning towards those to whom it is published, those who had the statement, to whom it is published? How did they construe it in its ordinary meaning? So the test is whether a reasonable man understands it as libelous. How would a reasonable person to whom you have published it regard those words? And that's the way it is construed. So your interpretation of this statement in its ordinary meaning, what does it mean? To say somebody is a thief, to say somebody cheats in exams, to say somebody is bankrupt, so the ordinary and natural meaning of these words. Then there are statements. So the one way of looking at statements is to look at the statement in its ordinary meaning. When in its ordinary meaning, it is clearly defamatory, of course, there will be no problem as to whether a statement is defamatory. But sometimes the defendant has not said something that is ordinarily defamatory. When you look at the words as uttered, these words are not defamatory as such, but they have a particular meaning that makes them defamatory. So we talk about them as innuendos. What innuendo is the words or the statement conveying? And when you look at innuendos, they are in two categories. You have the false or popular innuendo, and you have the true or legal innuendo. The thing about innuendos is that these words, in their ordinary, natural meaning, are not really defamatory, just looking at them in the literal sense of the word. But in the context in which they are uttered, or with the hidden meaning, the meaning that they convey that is technical, they are defamatory. So the two types, in the false or popular innuendo, the words that the defendant has uttered goes beyond the natural meaning. In its natural meaning, you may not see a defamatory element, but you need some facts that are attached to the words that would make you understand, in the sense that these words have an inherent meaning, have a technical meaning that those who know of those inherent meanings or technical meanings understand their defamatory connotation. An example is Mutual Society Against Apparently, where it was said that, the property sale by public auction was attached to the building of the plaintiff. When you say something is going to be sold by public auction, it means that the person is maybe a judgment debtor who's unable to pay his debts, or the judgment debt, or borrowed money and is unable to pay from the bank or whatever. So it's bankrupt or something. So, but the literal meaning of sale by public auction is it's not defamatory. Okay, we are selling by auction. It's not. But the inherent meaning of sale by a public auction is that the person is unable to meet his obligations, financial obligations, and that is defamatory. Okay, to call somebody to return a check in those days, that when checks were very common, you give somebody a check to withdraw money from your account, and sometimes the bank can write RTD. They will not say go and call the owner of the check. They just write RTD. If you don't know the meaning of the RTD, you may not know. They just return the check to you and say give it to the issuer of the check. RTD means return to sender, or DAR, draws attention required. Now, return to sender means take it back to sender. In the literal meaning, it means take it back. That's not a defamatory statement. Or draws attention required. I need the attention of the person that gave you this check. Go and call the person. That's also, in the literal sense, not defamatory. But the technical meaning of those words is that the person has not gotten sufficient funds in his account to honor the check. He has issued a drug check. So that is the defamatory context of those words. So false or popular innuendo. So when the words have inherent defamatory context or connotation, it will still be regarded as defamatory. Then you have the true or legal innuendo. The words also, in the literal sense in which they are uttered, is not defamatory. They are not defamatory, but there are some external circumstances that give a defamatory meaning, input defamatory meaning into them. There are some information that those who have had those words have within their confines that render them render the words defamatory. In case of Akintola and Anyam, for instance, the plaintiff, a former um, um, public official in the Old Western region, sued the defendant who had published a book of what I would call celebrities today, wherein he asserted that the plaintiff is known, popularly known, was a public figure. He was known to be from Ogbomoso, former Oyo State. But the publication of the defendant was that this plaintiff is the son of a chief from Ijesha land, Ilesha. Now, what is defamatory about that? You might say, okay, if it was from Ogbomoso, and now you say it's from Ilesha land. But the implication is what? That the plaintiff was lying about his pedigree. So that is a liar. If you say a public official is a liar, you know the implication. So that's the legal innuendo. There are some external circumstances surrounding the story, the words you have uttered, that give them a defamatory meaning. But the literal meaning, the natural meaning of those words are not defamatory. Also in like Alton Jones, where it involved the use of fictitious names. We'll still be looking at that in terms of whether the words refer to the plaintiff later, you know. And we also have Cassidy against Daily Mirror newspapers. Very interesting case where the defendant had published a picture of the plaintiff and a third party and put a caption that they are engaged. Their engagement had been announced. Meanwhile, the plaintiff was married to someone else. So if you say a plaintiff who is married is engaged to another person, the innuendo is that either he was living in cohabitation with the so-called initial wife, or he wants to engage in a bigamous marriage, either way. So the innuendo, the inherent meaning, the meaning that you can ascribe to the words from the external circumstances conveys a defamatory content. That's what we call true or legal innuendo. The words don't have a technical meaning, but there's external circumstances surrounding the context of utterance that give them a defamatory content. Some statements that have been held defamatory are listed in this case, are found in this case, Ladner and Sketch Publishing Company, when there was allegation that the lawyer was fraudulent. Lawyers are supposed to be the episode of the best behavior of integrity. They're not supposed to commingle the client's funds with their own personal accounts. So when you say lawyer to fraud the client, it could even lead to the person being debarred. That's defamatory if you cannot prove it. To say that somebody's process, you have said about public option already, allegation that a teacher is adulterous, that a public official is corrupt, and then the RTD issue. So these are some of the examples. But you know that from a lot of cases, sometimes it's not as apparent as that. It can be defamatory. It may not necessarily be a written statement. You know, when you're talking about defamation, the statement may not necessarily be written. It might be an image. It might be a caricature. You know, it might be a drawing. That when you look at it, you can see the defamatory context. So when we talk about statements, and I just must mention that when you talk about statements, you know, we've talked about spoken words, we've talked about written statements. It doesn't have to necessarily be those. It might be a picture, an effigy, something that is communicative. And in its communication, it gives an indication that negatively affects the reputation of the plaintiff. Another aspect of statements is what we call vulgar abuse. Vulgar abuse. And, you know, since that you just say you are just an insult. And in Robinson and Mello, it's been said that for mere general abuse spoken, no action lies. Where you make a statement that is understood as just insult, you know, they can take in the case context of Nigeria. If you go to the bus park, if they are going to call each other conductors, especially from some certain parts of the country, The way they call each other is abusive. It's abusive. And so vulgar abuse, where a statement is regarded as mere vulgar abuse, it may not be regarded as defamatory. For it to be vulgar abuse, it must be understood to be so by those to whom it is uttered. And the law is that when something is mere abuse, for instance, it cannot be defamatory. It has been said in Nigeria, for instance, that but abuse is usually a prelude to a fight. So people want to have a physical fight. Before they start fighting, what do? They abuse each other. Maybe people are standing beside them and watching and saying, don't fight, don't insult each other. No, they're abusing each other. Nobody who is standing there, seeing these people involved in a fight, will take their statements serious. So they are usually words spoken in the heat of anger, and they are usually understood that by those who are around to be mere vulgar abuse. Like you are driving on the streets of Lagos and someone calls a woman who is driving, these conductors, they say, oh, ashewo, prostitute, because maybe they feel you didn't drive well enough or fast enough. These are things that are commonsensical, commonplace in the society. And nobody who hears you being regarded as a prostitute in that context actually takes them serious. Now, when it comes to vulgar abuse, one of the things you must know is that for there to be vulgar abuse, you must understand the fact that it's only spoken words, oral communication that can be regarded as vulgar abuse. Don't forget I said that these were vulgar abuse most usually words spoken in the heat of anger, and they are usually understood by those who are around as mere abusive words spoken in the heat of anger. So it cannot be vulgar abuse when it is written. Libel does not come within the context of vulgar abuse. It must be slander. Okay, so it's been held, spoken words cannot constitute, written words cannot constitute vulgar abuse. It must be spoken words. And when it is spoken words, there will be no cause of action. So for defamatory statements, we are saying therefore the statement must injure the reputation. It must cause some damage to your reputation. It may be damage that is presumed if it's libel, if damage that is must be proven is slander, unless it falls within the exceptions that we have talked about in earlier videos. And in terms of constrained statements, and when we say statements, I said that it must be a statement and not an expression of an opinion. And the statement need not be words that are written or spoken alone. They can be a picture that have a derogatory effect. It might be an effigy, cartoon, all those forms of communication come within statements. Then it may be plainly defamatory in the sense that the literal connotation of that statement defamatory. To say somebody is a thief, is adulterous, committed adultery, that somebody stole, somebody is, is corrupt. This in their literal meanings are defamatory. But we said also that sometimes these statements are not expressly, literally, plainly, naturally defamatory. But sometimes they have an innuendo, they have implicit in them a defamatory context, and we talked about the two forms of innuendos, okay? The one that has a technical meaning and the one that is true or legal innuendo, whereby the circumstances that surround the case is what gives it a defamatory connotation. And then we talked about the vulgar abuse, that if it's a statement, it's mere vulgar abuse, or a statement made in jest, just meant throwing banters and what have you. Of course, that must be an oral statement, then it cannot be defamatory. But where it is a written statement do not fall within the context of what you can regard as vulgar abuse. So that is the first element of the thought of defamation, in the sense that if you were asked to look at the facts of a case, the first thing you should do is to say, is this statement defamatory? Is it defamatory? How would I know it's defamatory? I first define defamation. When I define defamation, I bring that to that there must have been a statement that you have made about the plaintiff that is defamatory. And for a statement to be defamatory, this is the meaning, is that some of the statements can be spoken, it can be written, it can be a picture, an effigy, any kind of communication. We can fall within libel, slander, and then you take it from there to move to the next element, which talks about the fact that it must refer to the plaintiff. And that is what we'll take at the next presentation. So I'll see you at the next presentation.